reasonable news and coverage rather than just all this opinion and entertainment passed off as news, then those people who don't have the time to look further will actually get some reasonable idea of what's going on. I mean, how many people would actually know about all the strikes in Greece, you know, really, if they watch the American news?
They probably know nothing about it.
No, because, you know, in my experience, particularly the local channels, it's local news, well, very local news, maybe regional news, and maybe important national stories, and then if it's something really big that affects America, you might get international news, and that's really the long and the short of it.
I follow, you know, British media pretty closely, Australia, New Zealand, Arabic media, all over the world, and yeah, it is definitely very clear that if you go to a website, even like the BBC or the Guardian or the Independent, you're going to find a lot more cosmopolitan view of the world. And it's always the same comment I get from everybody I talk to who's not an American citizen, or I don't know if you are or aren't, but you know, people come in from out of the country and they say the same thing, that they feel like they have to stop watching American media because they're going to become like, ignorant and stupid. It's a big problem that, you know, they feel like they're better without it. It never fails. I hear it over and over and over.
France 24 and Al Jazeera are available over the air.
Right. Al Jazeera English too, you know, for all the non-Arabic speakers out there.
Both are in English. Both are in English.
Right. I did an interview with Al Jazeera English about maybe a year ago. I don't know how many people actually follow. My impression is not that many, because for a long time, and I think this is still actually the case, the cable providers just blackballed them. You can get it online. You can read the Al Jazeera English website online. It's english.aljazeera.net. But it's a very valuable resource, too.
Unless you're Shia.
Channel 20.3 is Al Jazeera.
It's 23?
20.3.
Okay, so there is some local coverage.
20.3, it's on the air. Russian news, Al Jazeera.
France 24.
Is this public television or cable?
Yes, it's public television.
Channel
Over-the-air broadcast.
I just read it online.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I canceled my cable recently, so I get like 3 channels. So.
The City College Station, they have NHK, Japanese, they have all kinds.
So there's all types of sources out there that people can be following, and especially with the internet. It's a very wonderful resource. You can go to my website if you don't have time. There's news aggregators. You can find stories from all different types of media in the U.S. and internationally. So you just have to be a little bit, you know, smarter about it. I recommend sources like Truth Out, because they aggregate all different types of news from corporate media, and they have independent stuff. So it doesn't take that much effort to follow the news in a smarter way rather than killing yourself.
Buzzflash is part of Truth Out too.
Buzzflash.
Yeah, that's another. I think they're working with Truth Out now.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. I have a couple of questions. I'll try to make this quick. I guess the first question, I would like your comment on this. You're talking about corporate media, and my question is straightforward. Is the media corporate-driven, or is it consumption or business-driven? So when you're saying, you know, this news, some of this news is, or what's in the news is manufactured, if I can use that word, by the corporate interest and otherwise. At the same time, these media outlets, they have to sell their product. So in one hand, there's some stuff that is manufactured by corporates. On the other hand, there's a product that needs to be sold to the American consumer. So which is which? How do you, how would you say in this political discussion about, let's say, about Islam or about healthcare reform, what part of it was being manufactured to promote single side or to promote a political idea, and what other part was done for consumption, for media outlets to increase their ratings, so to speak? It doesn't matter what you're talking about, as long as people just tune in. So how do you differentiate between the corporate political ideas and the consumption and ratings? And this leads me to the second question, which is, I always ask this question, I don't know why I get the opportunity to ask this, is that as far as media goes, it seems to me that the message that resonates with right wing is totally different from the message that resonates with left wing. And one of the things that you talked about is, going out there and informing people, so as having alternative to this news media. And the contrast here, what I'm saying, what I'm talking about, the message that resonates with right wing, it seems to me, I don't know if I just wrote this down real quick. Anything that's ad hominem, or talking about celebrity, or selling fear, or something controversial, these things resonate with right wing. That's a message. Whereas the left wing, quote unquote, it's different. It's reason. It's rational. To me, this informing people or talking something rational or talking reason, these things don't sell on the media at all. I don't know what the reason is. Is it a corporate thing? Is it blocked by corporate, or is it that the American consumer are not ready for this? They're not ready for reason. They would like something about celebrity, something about fear, controversy, or something at home about somebody. The only example I can give here is I'm a consumer of stand-up comedy. Most of my favorite comedians, stand-up comedians, I actually have to study pop culture to understand what they're talking about, to get some of the jokes. I have to know what Lindsay Lohan, Paris Hilton are doing, so that I can get the jokes. Whereas if there's another comedian who's doing something abstract, nobody here heard about Mitch Hedberg. Mitch Hedberg, rest in peace. I mean, he was a very great comedian. He has a cult following. He's not on mainstream media because he doesn't do celebrity stuff. It's mostly abstract, But anyway, that's probably not a good example, but yeah, that's, I'd like to hear your comments about that. Thank you.
Sure. I think you raised some really interesting questions. In terms of the corporatist versus consumption stuff, I don't personally see a way to separate them, because on the one hand, when you talk about healthcare reform, I think it's even more directly relevant for healthcare than the Islam issue, because with Islam, I mean, you have a lot of these kind of cultural problems coming in of just American parochialism and ignorance and racism. There's a long history of that. There's not as direct of a connection as when you talk about something like healthcare. In the case of healthcare, the companies themselves that report this media, they know how to make money and how not to make money. And the way you make money is you don't piss off Democratic and Republican parties by going off on your own and creating your own agenda. Now, they have regularized access. That's why they're called stenographers. They're writing down what these people are saying in the Oval Office or wherever. And they understand that this is how you make a profit, on the one hand. You have regularized access to information, and that's a very cheap way to produce news. Unfortunately, it allows for the manufacture of news, too, because basically you're just allowing government people to define the news. But there's an economic bias here because they want to make money. This is the cheapest way to do it. By the way, get rid of all your foreign coverage, too. Close down all those bureaus and send somebody who doesn't know anything about reporting, I'm going to say it nicely, to cover the Michael Jackson trial and stand outside. Just say that he's standing there or something. There's plenty of ways to cut costs, and they're directly driven by this kind of consumer system of make as much money as possible and sell the ads. And the advertiser pressure comes into this too, because if the advertisers are seeing that this entire system is being challenged, and in the case of healthcare, we can see very clearly, universal healthcare is a direct challenge to private insurance. It's a fundamental challenge to an ideological system which says that it's okay to profit off of health insurance, and it's okay to deny people coverage to make money. So on the one hand, you have this kind of consumerism that's driving things. Reporters don't want to make advertisers angry. Advertisers have a certain view of the world that's favorable to consumption and capitalism. You have that kind of consumer logic, and you have the general ideology. I think these things are all working at the same time. To very briefly hit on the other point, if I don't answer well enough to what you're looking for, maybe we can talk after this whole thing is done. But part of the problem when you talk about Fox News and rationality is that when you have increasingly desperate economic times like we're in, people are willing to believe a lot of things that they wouldn't otherwise believe. And they're especially likely to believe those things if they're not hearing anything else. Now, If you look very closely at Fox News consumption, people who call themselves primary Fox News viewers, that means they get their news from Fox primarily. The percentage of those people who said that they followed other television sources in 2004 was about a third. Not that good at all. Only a third of these people are actually following other TV sources like MSNBC or CNN or local news even, or even network news like ABC, NBC, and so on. You know what that percent was by 2009? After the alleged Obama takeover and the, every conspiracy that comes along with it that's pushed by Glenn Beck and all these other people.
Went down.
2%. 2% of people who get their news primarily from Fox follow any other source. They don't want to listen to anything else. This is an increasingly desperate economy. People are getting very uncomfortable, and they're falling back on these voices that they were already predisposed to hear and like, but now they're not hearing anything else.
Doesn't make them feel good about themselves. I mean, I'm sorry to be so cynical, but Fox makes them feel good about themselves.
Right. They feel comfortable because they already have.
It says it's somebody else's fault.
Right. There's a lot of scapegoating, and
about
that
3 or 4% audience share. That it's not as powerful as you sometimes think.
Well, wait a second. If you're taught, number one, that it's not the system, and number two, that it's not you, you're willing to go to number three. That's anything. When you abandon the number one or number two reasons why you're suffering, you know, number three is anything after that.
I should also add, I don't distinguish between right-wing radio and Fox News. It's true Fox News has 1.5 million readers or viewers every day. If you ask people in general, do they regularly watch Fox News? It may not be every day, because most people don't follow news every day. About 20 to 25% of Americans say yes. And it's the same thing with right-wing radio. It's not a small group. It's a very large group of people. And it's not just Fox News, by the way. You know, I document in the new book I'm working on, it's going to come out next year, very much how those messages started Fox News and then they trickle down to everything else. So all of a sudden the talk of the New York Times is now all about cost. Cost was way over the public option as an issue of discussion in the New York Times in the fall of '09 and spring of 2010. That was the big issue, cost and debt. Those were the biggest themes to come up in reporting, way over any discussion of a public option or even these conservative exchanges or universal health care or any of that stuff. So it has this kind of ripple effect too. It's all over the place.
At the beginning of your presentation, you pointed out that we have very little choice when it comes to news and television. I also agree with the British lady who just left. It's pathetic. It's more or less gossip, and really doesn't make that much difference. Not a difference, whether it's Fox or MSNBC or the others. They're more or less all the same. If I want to watch news, I watch Deutsche Welle or TV5, the French station. My question to you, can you recommend any other channel that I could get? We have a lot of cable channels.
I think, well, I don't have cable anymore. But, well, one of my favorites when I actually watched, I mean, I watched a lot of BBC television, but also, you know, these outlets like Grit TV and Democracy Now! Do a very good job. I used to think that this whole idea of balance in journalism was really just a bunch of garbage. But when you have someone like Amy Goodman who actually makes a real effort to incorporate a wide range of views, she actually gets up and, you know, interviews people on the left.
She's where?
Amy Goodman is Democracy Now! It's on Free Speech Television.
Is that PBS?
Free Speech Television?
It's not PBS.
Okay.
It's Free Speech TV. That's a cable outlet, though.
Okay.
You should be able to get it online, too.
It's also on some FM stations as an audio only.
Okay.
Generally college station.
Okay.
She basically does what mainstream journalists say that they're doing,
Okay.
but don't do.
Okay.
They have a lot of diversity of opinions and actually holds people's feet to the fire when it comes to political leaders and having a real diversity.
Okay. The other point I want to bring up, you talked about an anti-war movement. And no, there isn't any. It's just not the same. The biggest sin of Charles Rangel was not what he was accused of lately. His biggest sin was not to fight for the reintroduction of the draft. Because if we would have a draft, the war would stop in Afghanistan and Iraq, and we wouldn't talk about attacking Iran. That's all I have to say.
I think that's a good point. I think the immediacy is not there that there was during the Vietnam period, so it's very insightful.
Hello.
The young lady's comment earlier around the BBC brings a question to mind. I work with some Brits, and I